watching the Go Crying to Walk In podcast. I'm Chef Cholo, and you already know. As always, we're powered by Hospitality News Magazine and Hospitality News Magazine Online. If you want to have your finger on the pulse of everything hospitality, pay attention. Today's guest is Long Island's only celebrity chef, Tom Shaudel. How are you, brother?
Hey, how are you, Chris? Good to see you, man.
Is that too much? Long Island's own celebrity chef?
I'll take it.
It wouldn't be the first time they called you that, brother.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
I'm a legend in my own living room. You know.
No, most people's mind, brother. Most people's mind. You know, as a young chef here on Long Island, you know, growing up, I mean, I became an executive chef of the first place. Probably I was like 25. I'm sure I had no right being an executive chef, but I think it worked for them on the price of this restaurant.
There you go. Yeah,
you know what I
mean?
mean?
Sure, yeah.
And, you know, it was a cool place. It was a wine bar, Conrad's Bar and Grill. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And, you know, wine Cuvée system,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of wine tastings.
That was Mark, right?
Mark Fox. Mark
Fox.
and Scott, yeah. Mark was a great guy. Had a lot of cool connections.
Yep.
I mean, it was for me. It was a jump start. You know what I mean? I was doing things. I was at Garden City Hotel, and you know, working under. I mean, I worked under Ollie Barker, a couple of of good chefs, and you know, I applied for that job as a sous chef. I remember, I knew something was up. I applied for the job as a sous chef, and the two owners hired me. I go, "Where's the chef?" "Oh, he's on vacation." And
Mark want to save some money.
Yeah, go, Joe's on vacation, they said. I said, okay, all right, where's Joe coming back? He's going to be back next week. I said, okay, Joe came back. Joe's like, who are you? I'm like, I'm Chris. I'm a sous chef. Really? He goes, but I have two sous chefs. I go, I don't know. I got hired. I don't know what happened. So we worked a couple of weeks, you know what I mean? Me and Joe was going okay, and then the two of them sat me down. I guess I came to work every day. You know what I mean? I wasn't drinking all day. And they were like, hey, can you do Joe's menu? I was like, I don't know, I guess. Isn't that what we're doing every night here? They go, yeah, okay. So I got the job, you know, and it was cool. It was a jump start into, like, winery. They had relationships with, like, I remember we did Ray Signorello was there.
Oh,
that's
really?
right.
Yeah.
Mitch Cosentino. That's another big vinter.
Mitch. Yeah.
And I think I did acid with Ray Signorello at Coco's. I'm not sure. I know there was something going on at the table, but I'm not sure.
You get dosed?
I think I took it. I think
Voluntarily?
I willingly took it. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was Ray who actually had the drugs, but I know it happened. There was quite a wild. I don't know if it was acid or mushrooms, but I remember it was a wild night.
Yeah, that's what the kitchens were like back then, man.
You're right, man.
Yeah.
So then we would go out to, like, various barrel tastings, and then I would meet guys like you. Man, you remember those days?
Oh, sure, yeah, vaguely.
Yeah, vaguely. I remember once you came to the bar. I remember, like, being as a young guy. I was like, you know, Tom came to the bar. You had, you know, you were with a girl. Obviously, you had a girl with you.
Yeah.
You're always good with that, my friend. You're always good with that.
That's how rumors start, you know.
This is a long time ago.
Yeah,
whoever's in charge of Tom's life right now, this was a long time ago. Anyway, so, you know, you're a graduate of Culinary Institute, right, Tom?
Yeah. I actually went first year in New Haven, was still in New Haven, and then I was the first graduating class out of Hyde Park in '73.
First graduating class.
Yeah.
Now, was everybody, like, living in Roth Hall at that time, or there were dorms?
No, there was no dorms at all. Everybody
Zero
was. Yeah,
dorms.
I was a senior, so I was off campus. But and even in the first year, you know, but you could live off campus. It wasn't a problem. Even the first year I was there when I was a junior, or, you know, freshman, whatever it's called. Right. Same thing in New Haven. They had dorms there, but you could live off campus if you wanted to.
But you better get there on time.
Well, yeah, you had to get there on time. That was a problem.
That's where the dorms were good, I felt like. You just had to walk a little
Fall
bit.
out of bed and into the classroom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Security would usually knock on my door for some reason and wake me up. Well, I remember, like, when I went there were 3 dorms. It was A, B, and C.
Right.
But when I first went, there was one class was still living in Roth Hall. There was still guys I knew that lived upstairs. And then by the time, you know, halfway through, it was all just things with offices and other classrooms and stuff in there.
Yeah.
What was it like transitioning from New Haven to the campus in Hyde Park?
Yeah, well, we thought that thing was just the best because it was, you know, brand new and all that. You know, New Haven was ramshackle. I mean, the buildings were ramshackle. They had an old thing called Angel Hall, which was an old mansion. They had kitchens stuffed in there. So it was small, and they had another campus across town on Whaley Avenue. And, you know, New Haven's kind of interesting town because it's dominated by Yale University,
Exactly.
right? And the cool part about it was that they made the cops put green lights on their cars. And it was under the guise of, we want to feel safe knowing there's a cop around. But basically, they didn't want to get caught doing anything they weren't supposed to. So you could see a cop coming from a mile away, which was advantageous to some of us, yeah.
They say New Haven is the king of the epicenter of pizza. What was it back then?
Yeah, it was a place, Frank's Pizza was there,
Okay,
the
Frank
clams.
Pepe's,
Yeah,
right,
Frank
yeah,
Pepe's.
yeah.
But they had this place called Naples Pizza that had a pizza truck. So we had it, we had it on campus like every night. Everybody was ordering pizzas.
So like a food truck you're talking about?
Yeah, that was the first food truck I
in the
ever saw.
70s.
In the 70s.
I couldn't believe
70s.
that. That's awesome.
71, actually.
And they were cooking like with a wood fire or something in there?
No wood fire. No, they just had a regular
gas,
deck oven.
right.
Yeah.
I trekked over there to New Haven. That's Sally's, that Frank Pepe with the clam. It's a good pizza.
Very good pizza, yeah.
So, time goes on. You're always around, chef. You know what I mean? Like, I remember I went to a brewery and you came by and visited. I remember when I was working at Conrad's, again, the wine scene was so big.
Sure.
Jenna, who's my wife now, we just started dating. And, Mark was like, oh, I got some tickets. Maybe Winebow, some like swanky building in Soho.
Yeah.
I don't know where it was. And I remember going around and boom, there you are. I was like, I want to go say hi.
Yeah, the trade tasting.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a hot scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, I didn't know what to do. I knew I drank, I drank wine. I knew I liked red wine. I didn't really drink a lot of white wine. So, but, you showed me how to, go to a tasting. Like, don't go running over to the thing you want the most. Don't go running right at the cab and some of that stuff. Try some white wines. Move a little bit of things. So, you were always, cool about educating. And then I would see, I'd see you playing in a band. And then someone's like, oh, yeah, Tom's a black belt in what? Judo?
Kung Fu.
Yeah. And then I always thought my life was so busy. You know what I mean? I always be like, this job, and I'm here 12, 15 hours a day, and we're there 6 days a week. And, how do I do anything else? And then I have to remind myself. I look at guys like you. I'm like, this guy's got like 10 restaurants at the time. He's finding time to be a black belt, and then you're playing in a band. So how do you mix that up, brother?
Well,
how do you do that?
The guitar thing started really early. I was Jimi Hendrix is actually the reason I'm a cook.
What?
Yeah, it's, I was playing, I started playing guitar for the Beatles. I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, so I said, that's what I want to do. I want to be a rock star. You see how that worked out, right? So anyway.
You're a rock star chef, brother.
I'm playing guitar in middle school dances, this, that, and the other thing. About 1968 or 9, a friend of mine brings over the Are You Experienced album, Jimi Hendrix album. I'm like, oh, shit, this is hard,
Yeah.
So I immersed myself in his music, but I couldn't get the tone because I had this cheap little amplifier. So I cut the speaker with a razor. I didn't have a fuzz box. I blew the thing up. Long story short, I blew the thing up like 3 or 4 times. So my father says, if you think I'm giving you another dime for an amplifier, you idiot. You know what I mean? Go get a job if you want an amplifier. So I lied my way into a dishwasher's job at 15, and the rest is history. I just wound up staying there.
So that's the one we talk about in the book with Shorty.
Shorty, oh yeah.
So do you mind if I ask what restaurant that was?
It was a place called Sirloin Steak Pub, SIR, new word, LOIN, and it had the beef eaters, from
Is it
England.
anything now?
It's a IHOP now.
It's an IHOP
It's on
now.
the corner of Ellison Avenue and Old Country Road.
And Old Country Road. Oh, I know the spot.
In
Right.
Westbury there, yeah. So, yeah, it was a brand new restaurant opened up. They had a big sign in the window, need help needed, so I wandered in there. And you're supposed to have working papers if you weren't 16,
right.
Well, if you were 16. And I just told them I was 16. Nobody cared, so I went in
They
there.
didn't look back.
No. And I was the only one who kept showing up, so
I didn't have a social security card when I first went for a job.
Really?
My parents never, it was something that we didn't think about, I guess. I don't know. I had a number, I guess, somewhere.
Yeah.
But I never had a card. And then I had to fill out an application. They were like, social security number. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I had to go get one in order to work there.
That's what I had to do. I had to go get the freaking card, yeah.
And, minimum wage was $1.55 an hour back then,
Wow.
I remember working 90 hours a week and taking home like $87, whatever it was.
That's
crazy.
when the owners of the restaurants drove Mercedes and had Rolex.
Yeah, they were wealthy. Absolutely.
It was good then, yeah.
It was good.
It was good then. So, time goes on and, I see you really have pushed yourself into the world of local wine and wineries. And like I said, I would see you at these events and things like that.
Sure.
Right now, you even produce your own bottle of wine, right?
I do. I make about 10 different varietals every year.
10?
Yeah, about 10.
All under the same name?
All under the same name, Tom Shaudel Reserve. I make all my wines at Pominock because
Awesome.
I love their wines. I think they're great. And I've been a big fan of the wines. I mean, we're the only self-hating wine country in the world. I mean, everybody else, you go to Italy, if you're in Tuscany, you say, hey, you got any wines from Sicily? They look at you like you're out of your mind, They're very parochial. Here, you have any Long Island wines? Oh, they all suck, I don't carry them,
So weird.
Yeah, and it is, and Pominock, where I make my wines, they have over 24 wines that have been rated over 90.
Right.
And 90 is a 90. It's not a zip code issue. 90 in California, 90 in, it's the same thing.
I mean, Long Island's a strange place.
The other thing is, too, if you're a restaurant owner, I had this conversation with somebody. I was out east, right? And I said, I noticed you don't have any Long Island ones. They all suck. I can't sell them, I said, okay, well, let's say that's true. Why wouldn't you want 25 tasting room managers sending people to your restaurant every day? Because last I heard, we need all the customers we can get. And the 7 million people that come out here every year to visit apparently don't agree with you. And the two things they ask before they leave the winery is, where do I find your wines and where do I go to eat?
Right.
So even if you don't like the wines, it's a stupid business decision not to have them.
The guy goes, there was one?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's just bizarre, And meanwhile, I have friends, when I opened Jewel, I wanted to make a stand. So I had 500 Long Island wines. 130 Long Island wines on a list of 500.
130.
I had 130 different Long Island wines. It was probably the only restaurant in Long Island that ever had that many.
Gotta be.
So I have a friend of mine, he's down a block, and he says, I can't sell them. I said, I sell 400 cases a year of Long Island wine. You can't sell 2 bottles. Maybe it's you.
Yeah, I think that people have to reflect on themselves.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, Long Island has that, sheepish mentality where I only do what I'm told and I only do what I see on television. But if you pay attention to the right television shows, you'll see them talking about the right wine.
Yeah, I also think that we live in a very label-conscious society here on Long Island. Everything's Mercedes and Prada. If you go to Americana, it's every store has this big name,
Yes.
And I'll give you an example. I have a gig at a private club. I manage a kitchen over in Mill River Country Club, and I did a blind tasting for the ladies over there, all whites, right? I had 10 wines. I had 2 Chardonnays from California, 2 from France, Sauvignon Blancs from all over the world, that and the other thing. Number 1 wine of the tasting, the favorite, Pomignac Chenin Blanc, right? And they were all like, oh, my God, I had no idea. I said, and I'm willing to bet $10,000 right now that none of you would bring a Long Island wine to your dinner party because you'd be embarrassed in front of your friends. They went, yeah, really,
They all said that.
They were the ones that's the one they liked the most, and that's the one they would bring the least.
It's upsetting, actually.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
So, I'm reading the book, and for me, again, I'm going to say Shorty again one more time. I just keyed in on this because I do remember, and again, for me, it was a quick progression, but when I was first working in the kitchens, when I was 15 or 16 years old, and I got my first dishwasher job at Big Barry's, which was like...
Barry Lane, I knew him well.
Barry Lane was an awesome guy.
He was.
Right? Very smart guy.
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually a
real
little...
short guy.
Yeah. It was like 4'11" or something.
Yeah, I would say midget, but you're not allowed to say words like that anymore.
No. He's actually in the book.
I'm really disappointed. I didn't read the whole book.
No, it's not by name, but he's the guy that was being robbed. There's a story in it.
Oh, the story about the robbery in Rocky Point, Rocky Point. Right?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I worked there as a dishwasher, and again, when you talk about Shorty, there were guys in my youth, again, very young African American guys in these kitchens.
Yeah.
And those were the guys we worked with as a younger guy. Now. Sure. It is transitioned to, Spanish people, mostly Central American people. You don't see that. So you have this different influence now. And again, you have that, you can come across that same passion that Shorty had, but it's going to come from a guy that grew up in El Salvador or Mexico or Honduras. So it's the same, but different in many ways. And, but again, with Barry Lane, working there, the guy was a genius. Like before Big Barry's, he had what? St. James Infirmary
in Deer Park.
And it was like before you would get, nowadays you see shots in a test tube, but back then that's how you got a shot. You know what I mean? And the cocktails were like in beakers and things like that. Waitresses all dressed up like nurses.
He was a marketing genius, Barry.
Genius. You could come into Big Barry's and you had this light gun and they'd spin a wheel every time you went there.
Yeah. And
there were real discounts on this wheel and you'd aim the freaking gun.
Yeah.
And whatever it was, that's what you got. My old man took us there ad nauseam because he loved that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He loved the idea. It was fun.
Yeah, and I didn't he had you could buy it by the ounce too, couldn't you?
That was the one thing my old man didn't like because he thought that was like
cheesy.
Not even cheesy. He was confusing to him.
Okay.
What's the thing cost? You know what I mean? The 4-ounce steak is nice, and that's the price. But yeah, the one Roy's going to eat is going to be $12.
Yeah,
but again,
exactly.
$12 is nowadays is not a lot. And but drinking was big, and it was a bar culture.
Sure.
We worked in a pit. It was called the Pit. And the kitchen was in the back, but the grilling and I was on Wrangler potatoes. We used to make these French fries. And
they were baked potatoes that were fried, weren't they?
It was a baked potato. We put through a wedger and then we fried them. It was actually awesome. It was
good.
When you could use real fat in a fryer.
Sure,
and things like that. We used animal fat at that point before you got rid of all that. When potatoes could taste good.
Sure, yeah.
You ever read... forget it. I'm gonna go there. I can't remember the guy's name, but there's The Tipping Point. It's a Malcolm Gladwell book, and he kind of describes a bunch of tipping points in our country, and one of them happens to be the McDonald's French fries. There's a big story about McDonald's French fries
really?
that he does.
I haven't seen it.
And he examines the chemical compounds of potatoes and this animal fat and tells us why they taste better being cooked in beef fat.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But we're not allowed to do that anymore.
No, you can't.
Next is well, you have restaurants in Suffolk County?
I do.
You can't wear latex. You can't wear latex gloves, right?
Well, I don't know. I still do. So
I do too. Yeah. Well, I can't afford nitrile gloves.
Well, the whole thing is so ridiculous. I mean, they're going to have us in level 4 virus suits before it's over.
It's bad. I can't imagine that touching something and putting it in a fryer is going to make it transfer, but someone says it does.
Well, what's the difference though between even the gloves? I mean, I get the glove thing maybe, but whatever germs can be on your hand can be on the glove.
Well, that's another thing.
It's just
I wash my hands ad nauseum to where they're constantly always messed up, and I think that early training in places like CIA where we didn't have gloves in those kitchens. No, you never saw a glove anywhere.
No, it wasn't until the 80s that started.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, now they want it. Now this loose fitting glove, but
that's terrible.
That's nowhere for us. So I saw that you had a testimonial from Nelson DeMille in there. Is he a personal friend?
He is. I met Nelson about 30 years ago in a restaurant I was doing a consulting gig on for a friend of mine in Garden City, and he had this thing called Thirsty Thursday, where he used to just stop writing and he would go out with Ed Lowe. I remember Ed Lowe from Newsday, and one other guy, I can't remember, another writer. And somehow I got hooked up with the three of them. And it was Thirsty Thursday. I mean, we're all cross-eyed by the time we left. And we just became friends. And, he's a great guy, a lot of fun.
A lot of This guy is how many books under his...
it's like 25, 30.
25, 30 books since the 70s.
I'll tell you a funny story about him.
Not just the Smack Man.
No. When I first, started thinking about writing a book, I was going to do a cookbook about Long Island, And I called him up and I said, listen, Nelson, I'm going to come over and talk to you about something. He goes, don't tell me you're going to write a book. I said, I am. He says, I'm going to give you some advice. He says, I want you to take 2 aspirins, lay in a dark room, and wait for the feeling to pass. I said, no. So anyway, I bring him over to the thing, right? He's looking over and he goes to me, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah. He goes, you really think Long Island needs another crab cake recipe or the world? I'm like, maybe you're right.
He's right.
He goes, but you're writing that article for that magazine about the crazy customers. Why don't you go along those lines? And so I did. And he said, he read the first book and he says, this is pretty good. I'm going to give it to my agent. So he gives it to his agent, and his agent turns me down, right? So I call him back up. I said, I thought you were a big shot. I thought you could help me get signed.
Hook me up.
I can get refused on my own. I don't need you to get turned down.
Rejection on my own.
Yeah, exactly. So it turns out it was a blessing in disguise because I self-published.
Right.
And you make a lot more money per book if you do that.
Right?
As long as you can sell them.
Right.
The average self-publisher, once the family and friends have one, it's over, But I have platforms, I have the radio show, I have the vineyards, I got the restaurants. So we sold about 8,000 copies of the first one.
Awesome. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no doubt. And that forced you to make another one.
Well, there's no shortage of talent out there, so you have second helping.
Stories in there, man, that all of us wish we could get up and say. But I'm glad you got the guts to do that sometimes.
Well, it's funny. I've had some people. I see these silly restaurant review sites. The Tri-State, whatever. And
you went right for that guy.
Yeah,
you threw me off that guy. I'm not allowed on that Facebook page anymore.
You couldn't be luckier.
I'm thrown off that one.
But anyway, I
He's
see
vetting people.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? So One of these guys writes on there about, Tom Shaudel, I hear he has a thing on his menu where if you want to talk about somebody, you can tell him and he'll complain about it. I'm like, that's not what happened.
That's not it.
I explained, I've served probably 2 million people on Long Island. 150 have made the book. It's a minuscule number,
It is a
And the
small
only
number.
people that bitch about it are people that act like that,
And they see themselves when
Of
they look at. I often wonder, if you're that guy that behaves like that in the restaurant, do you know you behave like that?
See, I don't think crazy people know that they're nuts.
Maybe
I think
not.
they just think it's Tuesday afternoon, I'm going to the nail lady or I'm going to the supermarket, and they treat everybody the same way. They're crazy wherever they go.
Just my father always taught me that the number one thing in being any kind of person or a professional or a leader, you have to understand how to handle mild disappointment.
Yeah, of course.
And I think those people at that level, they can't, any disappointment sends them into a place that they can't really recover from.
No, it's true. And I think also now with the advent of the internet and all of this instant gratification, everybody's now, me, I. Nobody has any patience. I mean, I've been doing this 53 years now in restaurants, 54 maybe, something like that. And I've seen the attitudes change dramatically, the way we talk to each other. I mean, I grew up in an area, if you said that to somebody, you'd have to run, duck, or fight. Those are your three options.
You're not allowed to fight anymore.
Yeah, I know.
There's
You're not
no
allowed to do it. No,
fighting
you can argue, I hear, a little bit. But
if you don't raise your voice and you say you're sorry and you shake hands at the end, you're allowed to
it's a hate
argue.
crime, It's like, you can kill somebody as long as you ain't calling them a name while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Because then you're really going to get it. It's crazy.
Bad names, not allowed to say names. I mean, that's where nowadays I think that I just train my kitchens to be a more friendly place. I mean, it starts with me. You know what I mean? And I check myself every morning. You know what I mean? And probably my own. I had my sons working with me for a couple of years while they were in college, and one of the twins was there for a little while the other one was still in Rhode Island. And one of the bartenders, after a couple of months, they're like, "Oh, that's your son, that kid." He goes, "All along I'm wondering, why is the chef riding that guy so bad?" And I took a step back and I was like, yeah. And then I started to notice that, a lot of my old traits that I would push on people like when I first started being a chef, I was using at my sons because
you're allowed to.
deep down in my heart, that's the only way I really know how to get it down.
I hear you. I hear you.
And it was the way my old man taught me, and it was the way I realized that, you can't really talk like that to everybody that doesn't know you. It's not your son or your wife or whatever.
You got to be Bill Parcells. You got to find what motivates each individual. I mean, I was always pretty easygoing in my kitchens, right from the get-go, because I work with so many lunatics. Shorty was, Shorty's, I always said his two basic attributes were an ability to drink 3 bottles of vodka a day and a penchant for carrying unlicensed firearms,
Yeah, no.
Shorty would shoot up bar ceilings. I mean, this is who I was dealing with when I was 16 years old.
You got to know who Shorty is, please. I need everybody to go grab this book, Second Helping for my brother, because there's some really, really awesome parts. But this Shorty, there's something to be said about him.
Shorty was...
And everyone's going to have a Shorty in their life, I guarantee it.
I still think of the guy. I mean, I haven't seen Shorty since 1971, and I think of him twice or 3 times a week. He was that big.
You left him and went right to the CIA at that time.
Yeah. I left him a little bit before that, but I used to come down on weekends and visit him, And but then one day I came and he was gone. Nobody knew where he was. I think he wound up in jail because Shorty did some crazy things.
You can't take a gun out in a bar and shoot at a couple. One time maybe you get away with it.
And especially he hit an air conditioning unit and flooded out the whole bar.
They had to pay. Somebody had to pay for that eventually.
And he told me when he finally got out of jail, I had to pick him up when he got out on bail, and he says, I got priors. You got to help me. I said, what did you do? Kill a microwave in a convection oven or something? He looked at me like he was going to strangle me. No,
he didn't like that. He didn't want you making fun of him.
No, he didn't.
He liked making fun of you.
He did. Tommy James Shaudel, he used to call me.
Tommy James Shaudel.
That's what he thought my name was.
That's awesome. Yeah. He made up his own language. From what I could read in the book, he had his own language.
It's unbelievable. If you read the book, I mean, Shorty, it's funny with, this protected class, you're not allowed to say it. Shorty was my dearest friend from the time I was 15 and a half until I was 18,
Right.
And I loved the guy. I absolutely loved it. And it was mutual,
Yeah.
But, it was an unlikely friendship. You had somewhere between 34 and 40. He would never tell me what this real age was. African-American guy and a 16-year-old street kid, a white street kid. I mean, we hung out every night we were totally the odd couple.
He had siblings or not?
I don't know. He gave you a different story every time you talked to him,
Probably wasn't from around here. Maybe he was from down south.
Grew up down south.
Yeah.
That I got.
Yeah, I definitely work with a couple guys like that. So in this wicked now, you've definitely caught yourself back to you have this like you said you got the club gig, you got the restaurants that are probably on hold a little bit out east right now. I mean they're open I guess now.
One's open, one's closed. The Lure's closed. I close. That's the one on the water. I close that.
What are you gonna do? Right, you can't.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've learned with seasonal businesses, you open when they're there, you close when they're not.
Yeah.
It's and everybody's starting to learn the same thing. I mean, you're seeing more and more places close Monday and Tuesday now, even in the city.
Tommy, sometimes they close Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
I know. And part of that's keeping the overhead down. Keeping the overtime out.
One schedule of people. You don't have to have the days off, and everyone has the same day off. I mean, I met some folks recently that own a place down in the Carolinas, and they're telling me, listen, they make more money being open Thursday through Sunday than they did when they were open 6 days a week.
You're not giving it back.
They're not giving it back.
That's the whole thing.
Not giving it back, which is a crying shame, but, okay.
It is what it is. I remember when I first opened the Montauk in the, I guess it was the early 90s.
Downtown.
Yeah, downtown. I opened this, and I was going to be the guy. I'm like, you know what? I'm good enough to keep this thing open, man. Right through Christmas. No, my partner's going. No, we got to close. No,
this is Montauk.
Montauk,
and
right.
this is like how many years ago?
Yeah, this is 30 years ago, whatever.
Nobody left in the winter.
No. So anyway, I'm waiting. Friday night after Labor Day, where is everybody? We did 2 dinners. I'm like, okay, I get the message. I'm not that good. Yeah. Okay, I'm in.
That's where I would see you. Like when I was at Conrad's, you were still in downtown.
Sure.
And I would see you in the winter. You come through, here and there. I remember you told me by now you'd be surfing in Hawaii, retired. I never forgot that.
Yeah, that didn't work out.
But we're still looking at each other.
Yeah,
right now.
it didn't work out.
I don't see it.
Montauk was an interesting place. It was the most fun I ever had in the restaurant business. But it was I learned at that age I didn't have the discipline to do a seasonal business because we would close in, let's say, November, and I would go to Mexico for 8 weeks, and I would drink my wine cellar dry, and I would I'd come back broke and
lose your mind
and had to start all over again.
You had sold Panama Hatties before you went to downtown, or you had?
Yeah, I sold Hatties when I still had the place in East Hampton. I had opened up a second place after Panama Hatties in East Hampton called Spring Clothes House.
Yeah.
And I opened the same year that the market crashed in '87.
Right.
So the Hamptons changed irrevocably at that point for about 4 or 5 years. And and I had an offer to get out of there, and I said, no, you know what, I know how to rescue this because I'm so smart and I'm so talented, and I turned like a $100,000 loss into a $400,000 loss because I'm so smart and I'm so talented.
Very talented.
Yeah, very good. I'm very good at losing money, Chris. Anyway, so
it's not that hard in our industry,
No,
brother. When
not.
you have to buy something that could die in a couple of days, and sell it, it's not that easy.
No, and you have a mortality rate. It's up in the 90s somewhere because most people who can afford to get into restaurants know nothing about them.
Exactly.
People who know about them can't afford to get in them. Once in a while those two meet and it works out, but
once in a while.
Yeah.
And then someone on the team is an accountant or a lawyer.
Prayfully.
Yeah, hopefully. Anyway, that's what Danny Meyer says. Anyway.
Oh yeah.
Creative, lawyer, accountant. There's your trio to open a restaurant.
Yep.
So in this time that you have, do you have any time for television or anything like that? Or
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done much of that. I've done some things on Food Network,
Oh, like watching TV.
Oh, watching TV.
Watching TV. You watching The Bear?
I don't know.
I didn't think you were a guy to watch
You know
TV.
what I watch? And very little TV, very late at night. I watch English TV mostly.
Mostly like BBC television.
Yeah,
You mean like Downtown Abbey?
No, Mrs. Brown's Boys. Have you ever
Mrs.
seen?
Brown, I know what that is. Yeah,
It's maybe the funniest show I've ever seen in my
Is that
life.
right?
It makes me laugh out loud.
You are an old school cat, brother.
Yeah,
That's
and it's
why
a
I love
live
you, man.
audience.
Yeah, it's a live audience.
I always thought that if you have, like a show where you have a laugh track, you need better writers.
You need a better writer.
But
BBC television is much different in that way, where it seems realer.
Yeah, and they don't have the shoot 'em up, bang, car crashes, explosions, all the silly stuff that you see on American television.
But you're not touching any of this. The Bear, you know about The Bear?
I know about it. I haven't seen it.
Very good. I mean, the only reason I would recommend it to a guy like you is that sometimes they catch it right in these shows or in a movie where you can feel like you're sitting there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like you were like, oh yeah, like that's what would happen. You know what I mean? Or that's who I would meet, and that's what I would do. And The Bear caught that, but there's a new one out there.
Was that The Menu?
The Menu.
Yeah.
So you're hearing about it.
I heard about it. Yeah.
Since you don't watch TV, let's just spoil it.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Since, Abe, you can put the spoiler alert on the bottom after we do that. You know what I mean? So the idea is like So the best chef in the world, who has his restaurant on an island, and you have to take a boat to get there, has become so successful that only the richest people in the world can eat there.
Right.
And we've already discussed about, opulence and things like that, and how really it does not a respect. People will buy art, but maybe not understand it or respect it. They'll go to a restaurant because they're supposed to be there,
right,
but not understand what's happening. So he's come to the conclusion that there's nothing left for him to do, and he's going to kill everyone in the restaurant. So he's going to...
I've thought about that, actually.
We've all, Tommy. But the coolest part about it is that he gets the entire staff to do it with him. And everyone's like, yes, chef, the whole time.
That's great.
They're chefing to the end. The sous chef at the second course, he presents the second course. So every course is, laid out, had to tell you the name and what goes into it. And because the sous chef himself felt like he never excelled to the level of the executive chef.
Right.
He's going to whack himself in front of everybody. And then you have to eat. So now everyone in the whole room is disgusted because the guy just killed himself. And they all have their reasons why they're there.
Yeah.
But the one guy whose reason why he's there is just because he's insane. And food is his whole life. And he doesn't care about anything else except the food. He's like, oh, this is awesome. There's blood everywhere. And he's still digging it.
Yeah.
The bread. So they start to get... That was the third course. The second course, they figure it out because the chef is known for bread.
Uh-huh.
So the bread course comes, and he explains to them the history of bread, and it was a peasant thing, but no one in this room is a peasant. So you'll get no bread. You'll just get accompaniments. So they get like this wicked plate with like 5 colors on it.
6 butters, 9.
Yeah, like 6 butters, or whatever the hell it was. And everyone's pissed off by now. You know what I mean? And, except the one guy who's now just, the butters. He's just, you can't hurt him. You can't. At the end, he has to kill himself too because he has to figure out he can't do it. But I will say I'm a victim of television. I do need it. That's probably why I don't get as much done as you.
Yeah, I don't watch much.
And,
opens up a lot of hours,
It does. It's a problem. When this new way to watch TV where you can watch everything at once.
Oh, anything you want, yeah.
Or at once.
Oh, yeah.
You wait for it to all start and then you watch the whole thing. What about social media? I know we're friends on Facebook.
Yeah.
But do you use it to promote things?
I use Facebook. I don't, my daughter keeps, getting after me about, you got to get it, Instagram, you got to tweet. Yeah, I don't know.
Your daughter has a media background, right?
She does, yeah.
We worked together, kind of. I ran a company that owned WLIR. She worked there, right?
Yeah. She interned there years ago. She's on me constantly. I don't have the patience, honestly. I mean, I do Facebook because I kind of know how.
Right.
But that's it. I wouldn't know how to get on Instagram if you had a gun to my head,
I like Instagram better. Less advert. For me, less advert. You need a picture to put up. You can't just go on there and cry about the hamburger that was no good. Right. Unless you had a picture of the hamburger that was no good, then you could cry about it.
Well, at least there's evidence.
At least you had some evidence. Right?
Yeah.
So, that wraps it up for us today, brother. I thank you so much. Now, if anybody wants to hear more from Tom, every Thursday, FM and AM.
Sunday
every
morning.
Sunday.
9 to 10.
9 to 10.
It's on WHLI.
WHLI.
1100 AM and 104.7
And that's the radio station out by the airport, right?
Farmingdale, yeah.
Yeah. Dave Whitmer used to be part of that.
Dave Whitmer was the president there for a while.
I love Dave. I just saw him recently. He's with Channel 12 now.
I think he is, yeah.
Dave's a great guy. We both got twins. Yeah, we both got twins.
That's funny.
All right, brother. Well, like I said, we're not in Hawaii. We're still here on Long Island.
There's still a chance.
And there's still a chance for us. And listen, so much love and respect, brother. Thank you so much. All right?
Thanks for having me, man. It's always a ball.
Peace. And again,
take care.
I'm Chef Cholo, and you already know.